I've had clients that just we start in the basement, and based off of what they've seen in the basement, they were like, I am no longer interested in the property. And that's something that if you tell me that while I'm here and I'm there, and we just did the basement, and for you it's enough that you're not interested anymore, I'll stop the inspection. It's happened a few times. It's rare, but I will stop the inspection. And based off of what we've seen, I'll give them a report saying that based off of what we've seen, the client is no longer interested, and then they'll move on.
Yeah, exactly. And then we all save ourselves an extra 2 hours.
Exactly. There's no point, right, for me to do everything if you're already, that you're not interested.
Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing right here in Quebec. And today I am very pleased and honored to have Tanya Manno from Inspector here with us today. Hi, Tanya.
Hi.
All right. Well, look, it's we met a couple weeks ago at a Very Real Estate event meetup, and starting to chat, and I wanted to share your story. So I'm glad you're here today. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Look, before we jump into it, I just want to remind everyone, it's really appreciated that you listen every week. Thank you for your support. And if you want to leave us a rating, a comment, it really helps us reach more people just like yourself who could benefit from this conversation. So please do so, and just send it to a friend who could benefit from this particular episode, because we're going to be talking about building inspection, why it's so important, and where we should get started and all that. So first of all, Tanya, you've been a building inspector now for a couple of years. How in the world did you get started in that field?
Well, that's a very good question. It's a very common question that I get because I am a female, right, in a male-dominated industry, and it's a very popular question that I get. So how I got started, actually, a few people know this about me. I actually started real estate in 2017. I am currently a licensed broker.
Okay.
And that's when I got my license, was in 2017. So when I started doing real estate, at one point within that year from 2017 to 2018, I saw building inspections, and it just stimulated me on another level that I didn't even know I liked. I didn't even know I liked buildings that much. I knew I liked real estate for sure, but this was like a new level that was unlocked, and I got so intrigued by it that I actually suspended my real estate license.
Okay.
And I went full pin into inspections. I took a course about for a year and a half and then after I did all the démarches necessary to become a independent building inspector. So that's how I started.
Cool. And so now you've been doing this since 2018, 2019?
2019, sorry.
2019. Yeah. Okay. So you have quite a few inspections under your belt.
I do. Yeah. Different types of inspections, actually. So I do mostly residential. I've done commercial as well. We do also commercial units, 30 units and up. In that case, because I am part of a huge franchise, I'm able to reach out to the other inspectors and gather a team if ever we need to do 30 plus units, because alone it would take me way too long to do.
Yeah. And which franchise are you a part of?
Les Services Inspecteurs were one of the biggest ones in Quebec, especially up in Quebec, Sherbrooke, and all those places were pretty big.
Okay. So now that we understand a little bit more how you got there and what you're doing, this is a real estate show. There's real estate investors that are listening every week, and the point is really for them to walk away with a couple of items that are important. And so obviously there's some very general questions, but I would start with a very, very, very basic one. We all know, what happened in the markets in the last in the last 6 months and a year. It's been cooling off a little bit. Before that, we had about 2-3 years of complete euphoria, and people were even making offers without inspections. And that led to quite a few problems and tricky situations. We know how important it is. Now, when you get called in for an inspection, what are some of the first basic things that you need in order to be able to take the contract?
Okay, well, in order for me to book the inspection, of course, the address, the type of property, the information that I need from my client is really basic. I just need their name, their email address, their phone number, so I can go ahead and book them in. And then we'll meet at the inspection. And I'll tell them I like to show up a bit before my clients, just so I'm able to do the inspection by myself, no questions, no distractions. And then when my client comes, I'm able to just, tell them exactly what I found and answer her question.
Okay. Okay, but then you still do a full walkthrough with them, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
My inspection starts when my clients get there for them, but I like to get there a bit just for myself, just because I want that peace of mind and fully focused on what it is that I'm watching here, that I'm seeing in front of me.
Mm-hmm. And now, as you said, like you're doing mostly residential, you've also done some multifamily. When you're dealing with a first-time buyer versus a more experienced real estate investor, it's obviously not the same type of inspection. What differences have you noticed, and where would you go for the investors that you necessarily wouldn't for the first-time buyers?
So the inspection stays the same, right? The elements that we inspect stays the same. It's just the way that the client understands what it is that we're looking at, because real estate investors, they've done inspections before. So there's common things that we'll find. Let's say your brick facing doesn't have weep holes. They'll know what weep holes are already, versus a first-time home buyer. I got to explain what the weep holes are and what they do and why you should have them. Of course, my first-time home buyers, I love them. You can see that they're very it's a whole stressful process, right? So it's very important when you're an inspector, how the way you convey what it is that you're looking at, right? There's a way to explain things, because to first-time home buyers, it's a lot to take in. The costs are heavy. It's a whole chapter in your new life, right? So if I start saying that, oh my gosh, you don't have ventilation. Oh my gosh, you don't have, you don't have parging on your foundation. It's not the end of the world. It's just that the way I explain, it's like, you don't have this, but it's not the end of the world. You can get it done. I don't know how much it will cost you. Just go out and, outsource that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you usually start with the inside or outside first? How does it work?
So usually always the exterior.
Walk us through.
Okay, so I arrive on site and we'll do the exterior. I'll do the whole side, all sides of the building, and then I'll go on the roof if I can, if it's safe, if it's not raining, if it's not too high, etc. Because I don't have the proper equipment like a roofer. I'm not gonna tie myself to the roof, but I do have my ladder with me all the time, and that allows me to go. So if I can go on the roof, I definitely will go on the roof. After that, once my client gets here, I explain to him or her whatever I saw, and then we'll go inside. We have a little bit of documents to sign, and then once the documents are signed, I start from the basement always, and I work my way up. So basement for me is my favorite because there's everything. There's often the utility room, right? Whether you have your furnace or you have your separate gas, oil, peu importe, everything is there. It's very important too, because you can see sometimes the structure of the building. If it's not finished by finishing materials, I can tell what kind of joists you have and stuff like that. After that, we'll do the main floor. On each floor, we're always testing the plumbing. We're always testing the electricity, always looking for, potential ways of issues that I can see, right? And after that, we'll do the next floor, so l'étage supérieur, and then the attic, of course, if there is. Very important for me to go into the attic, because if you have bad ventilation in your attic, if you have animals in your attic, if you don't have enough insulation in your attic, there's a lot of things that goes on in the attic, and it's a place where nobody goes. You buy a property, you'll probably never go in your attic, right? But I will.
Yeah.
I'm here for you to know exactly what it is that's going on in the attic.
It's the attic is a very, very good point. I love how you say like, oh, I always start in the basement, because I found the foundations, the basement, the crawl space, it always really gives you a good idea of what the rest of the building is going to be like, because it's a place like people don't really like to go and it's not really valued, but yet like it's really the core. And I include the foundations with that, where sometimes you see a big, nice building, but really all the foundations are cracked and it's sitting on absolutely nothing. So it really does tell a story. And I've gone to visits, like to make offers on buildings, and I was like, I just want to go and see the crawl space, see what it's like, and then maybe I'll make an offer.
It's funny you say that, because I've had clients that just we start in the basement, and based off of what they've seen in the basement, they were like, I am no longer interested in the property. Mm-hmm. And that's something that if you tell me that while I'm here and I'm there, and we just did the basement, and for you it's enough that you're not interested anymore, I'll stop the inspection. It's happened a few times. It's rare, but I will stop the inspection, and based off of what we've seen, I'll give them a report saying that based off of what we've seen, the client is no longer interested, and then they'll move on.
Yeah, exactly. And then we all save ourselves an extra 2 hours.
Exactly. There's no point, right, for me to
Yeah.
do everything if you're already, that you're not interested.
Yeah. And I've seen that on another one. There was like a beam in the crawl space, and the inspector was like, well, it's not really straight, and this could be a deal breaker. But do you want me to continue the inspection? And I was like, of course, I want to have the full story. Like, don't make that decision for me. And so, and as the client, you also need to be like very decisive of how far you want to go given the information that you have, because what he considers a deal breaker for him, for me, might just be like, okay, that's a $3,000 repair.
Exactly. See, and that's why I never offer that. It's if my client mentions, like, it's really clear that they want to stop, then I will. But like you said, I love that you said that. What, first time home buyers versus seasoned real estate investors, these little things that can add up for a real estate investor, maybe it's not that big of a deal, but for a first time home buyer, maybe that can be a deal breaker. But we're talking about the same thing. So for one
Yeah.
person, this could be a deal breaker. For another, it's peanuts.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also really for the ability, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as an investor myself, like I try to take the report and the inspection as an indication of like a health card of the building right now, but really just to establish also a maintenance plan to be able to say, okay, so basically like 3 years from now, we need to change these windows. 5 years from now, we need to redo the roof. And then you can do a costing, and it really does prepare. Like, do you have a lot of clients that are asking you to do this and like take the report further?
So basically, this is what I tell my clients when we start the inspection. My report, you do what you want with it. It's the PDF. You keep it for life. Yes, there are things. The way my report is made, it's very detailed. There's a lot of pictures, and there's a lot of sections. So like either there'll be recommendations, there'll be things to do right now, things to do immediately. There'll be just information, a bunch of stuff. On Nukaka, you do what you want with it. It's not because I tell you this needs to be fixed that you have to fix it. But this is my, mes conseils, dans le fond. So yes, I mean, I don't put a time frame. Like, let's say if we have original windows on a building that's more than 20 years old, 25 years old, I'll be like, listen, Nali, in the next 3, 4, 5 years, just plan a budget for replacement.
Yeah.
Because you need to be prepared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. And this is really the value. And in some cases, I know it's been a lot more for me about like the 2 to 3 hours together than the report. Because yeah, obviously the report is a great support to have a year and a half from now. We're like, oh, what did we say about that unit? And so on and so forth. But I find just like sitting with and following the inspector around, and then just kind of like sitting in the truck, be like, all right, what do you think? Should I buy this or not? And I've never had an inspector that said yes or no. I was like, that's not a decision I can make. That's for
That's
you.
it. I'm not going to tell you that because I don't know what your finances are. I don't know what is a deal breaker to you, what is not. For me, maybe this is an excellent place, but for you, there's too many things to put. So it's really my opinion. And I hate when they ask me this question. I refuse to answer. I say, you have to look it over with whoever you're investing, your real estate broker, if it's a good move for you. I don't know your finances. This is what it is. If you want to deal with these issues or not. But there is no perfect house. It does not exist.
No. And as you said, and that's also a difference between the first time buyer and the real estate investor, because the first time buyer is going to see this as like, oh my God, I need to do all these things to live properly. Whereas sometimes an investor will say, well, I can do a repair. I don't have to do like an A1 repair. I just have to do a durable repair, but I'm going to increase the value of the building. And then it's purely like, a mathematical and decision really based on numbers instead of the emotional side.
It comes with experience, right? It's normal. Your first time, you don't know what to expect. You've never gone through the whole process. It's a process. It's a long process.
Mm-hmm. It's a long process, and also we create value by solving problems. But solving problems is hard. Otherwise, everyone would be doing it. Otherwise,
it's hard and it's expensive.
Yeah. So this is the risk and reward for real estate investors and home time buyers. Like I'm sure you've inspected some houses, and I'd love to hear a few stories about that actually, where it's been on the market for a long time. There's already been probably like 3 inspections, and like you come there and you're like, oh my God, what am I going to find? Have you had situations that resemble that?
I did this year. I mean, I think there's like one every year like that. And that's the one that I was just talking to you about, where we seize the inspection. It's just not worth it. And I saw, that's funny because this particular house I'm talking about, I saw it online and it was listed for a long time. And I was like, And I saw the pictures and I saw that the main floor and the top floor was completely renovated. It was nice. It was really modern, but it didn't, something didn't click because the price, the amount of time it's been on, and the fact that the only the main floor was renovated. It was super nice, super like to come and get your attention, right? Like
Yeah.
come visit.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. And then I showed up there and the basement, like you said, the foundation, that was, first of all, it was concrete blocks,
Eesh.
which is not ideal. I mean, it's not the worst thing, but this one had issues and it was located so close to a train track. And I was telling my client, c'était vraiment proche. It was really close. And I was like, listen, right now I see there's issues with your foundation. You have, mortar that needs to be filled up. You have cracks. You can fix it. It's not an issue, but these are going to come back because you have the train tracks so close. The little vibrations, they play a role, right? And it's not, maybe you won't see it for the first 6 months, a year, but believe me, this is something you're always going to have to patch up regardless, because déjà de base, it's a block foundation. So from the get-go, you're always going to have to be patching up and fixing, solidifying, etc. But then you're adding on the noise from the vibration from the train track. It's like, shoot. And this is what, and it clicked to me. I was like, that's why it's throwing the
That's
market.
why, yeah.
That's why.
And actually, the train track is an excellent example. I find so many people aren't nearly enough aware of the environment of the location and then the impact that it has. Because like that train example, maybe that those train tracks, there's like a train a month, but maybe it's a major line, CNCP, and there's actually like 2 trains a day. You do the calculation after 10 years, that house got a lot of shaking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just,
Yeah, and like you said, see the environment. That's a good point. Another thing, when I look at the exterior, the land sloping, it sounds so minimal and so not important, but it is so important, because if you have, like I call a negative land slope, right? So you have where the ground basically is facing
the
towards your
building.
foundation. You have to think of the water, right? The water runoff is always going to go towards your foundation. You're always going to be soliciting your foundation. And in the winter, what that could do is you build up a hydrostatic pressure. And then what could that do? If you have a little crack, well, then it's going to grow. So very important, the land grading around your foundation. If you're going to take something away from today's podcast, the grading around the foundation is so important. And also, I always recommend my clients, if I see mulch, it's cute, c'est beau, blah, blah, blah. It's not good, okay? Because it retains humidity, insects. It's cute, it's pretty, I give it to you, but it's not ideal. Okay, you really want to have at least 3 to 6 feet away from the foundation if you want to have mulch.
That's a really good point. It reminds me, I went to visit, I think it was a 5 or 6 plex in Lachine, and the guy was, that's where, one of the places where I said, I just really want to see the foundation. And anyways, and then we went in the back, and the agent is telling me like, oh, look, see, this is great. There's like a nice little garden. Like, here, one of the tenant, he's growing tomatoes and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is Lachine. It's actually next, very close to like Villanova and all this stuff, super industrial. And I was like, okay, but you know that land over there is contaminated. That land over there is contaminated. So like this yard right here, most likely is also contaminated, and the guy is like eating his tomatoes. And the agent looked at me like, oh my God, I never thought about that. And it's like the environment that you're in, like the water and the contamination doesn't stop at your fence.
Exactly.
Talking about contamination, have you had major surprises in terms of like finding, for example, abandoned or buried tanks that no one knew about?
Not buried. I mean, the ones that were buried, they were declared. They
Mhm.
were empty and they were declared, and you couldn't even see them. They were buried. They just didn't do the work to remove the tank. No, but I have found some oil stains underneath some oil tanks, which can happen. Actually, I had one property once, I believe it was in Lachine, actually. It was like a triplex. It had a oil tank, and there were stains at the bottom. But above the oil tank, there was so much residue of because it caught on fire a
Oh,
while
wow.
ago, a while before I arrived, and you can still see the charcoal on the joists. They had double the joists, they had sister joists just to re-strengthen, but you could still see the damage that it had done. So it's very dangerous with oil and gas stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And contamination is such a big topic. I'm dealing with one of them now. And is this, I find it's kind of ridiculous in a way, because when we say decontaminate, really it just means like put it in a bigger bag and then bury it in its own hole. But in the end, that's still how it's dealt with. So anyways, it still blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I rather deal with fungi and mold than oil.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're both not the best to deal with, but
Yeah.
you gotta do what you gotta do.
All right. As we're getting towards the end here, I'm catching you a bit by surprise. This is unprepared, but I was hoping that you could like go back over your experiences, and it's fun to share like a really good, funny story about an inspection where all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I just can't believe this happened. And it's funny after the fact, maybe. So I don't know if there's something that you can think of where when it happened, you just wanted to share it with someone, and this is us today.
Okay. I mean, I have a few funny stories. I'm naturally in my everyday life, I'm a bit of a klutz. So like I drop things, I bang into things. It's normal for me. I once actually, and this is something that I tell my clients also, when you have I came into like a wardrobe, right? And you have a light in your wardrobe, but this one had a light bulb.
Yeah.
Usually when I see this, I always recommend to put a little grill over it because it's very dangerous. If you're going to go and remove a box or something, you're going to break it. And that actually happened to me on an inspection. I had just finished saying, actually, my ladder was set up because the attic hatch was there. It's a bit tricky for me to get there. And I just finished explaining. I said, this is dangerous because, it could happen that you can remove a box and you're going to, ça va éclater in your face. Don't I try to climb up the ladder and my butt hits the light bulb and it shatters everywhere. I felt so bad. I was like, this is what I'm talking about. Prime example. But yeah, that's one. I have so many, honestly. Like there's another one where I had to go in the backyard and my client was following me and I had tried to open the gate before, but it was locked. I assumed it was locked. I tried to open it. J'ai pas trop forcé because it's not my house. I don't want to break.
Yeah.
Like I said, I break stuff easily. That's me.
And you want to be held responsible for that.
No, I don't. And I don't want to damage people's stuff either. It's a very invasive process and inspection. I always, when I deal with tenants, I'm always like, sorry, it's not going to be long. I'm very, because, I'm in your stuff and I'm opening closets and stuff. And I had a guy get mad at me once. He was like, why are you opening my closet? Like, I just want to see if there's like water stains. He's like, okay, but he's like, my sex toys are up there. And I was like, okay. I'm like, I'm not gonna take your toys. I just want to see if there's water. And he got like really mad. He thought, I don't know what he thought, but anyways. So this other thing, the fence, right? I tried to open it. It didn't work. So I'm like, you know what? It was like a 4-foot fence. I'm like, I'm just gonna jump the fence because whatever. Then my client follows me and he comes like a minute after me and he literally opens the gate and walks in and I look at him like, mais non. He's like, what? I'm like, I literally jumped the fence because I thought it was locked. I tried, a little bit and it was like, you had to push it. And he just had the process to follow through and push it. I didn't. I was like, I'm gonna leave it like this. And I jumped. I was laughing so hard to see him just open the fence effortlessly. And I was like, wow.
And you're like, how did I not figure this out? We all have moments like this.
I was like, hand to the forehead.
Okay, another question by surprise. For everyone who's listening, who's probably going to be making some offers and some inspections in the next couple of months, what would be like 2 or 3 pointers that as a professional, when you look at a building, you'd want to share with them?
Okay. So like I said, the first thing really important, the land sloping. You don't need me to tell you this because when you're going to come, you're going to be aware. Another thing I like to mention to my clients while you're visiting, before you put in your offer, notice if it's a really basic thing, but notice if there's GFCIs. So GFCIs are the outlets that you have near your sink in the bathroom. Basically, these you need to have them anywhere near water source. So bathroom, kitchen, exterior. You need to have the test reset. For people who don't know what a GFCI is, or DDFT en français, and it has the set and the test reset, buttons. So that's a little thing, but if you notice it right away, at least you'll know that you're gonna need an electrician to come in and install that. What else? The roof. Actually, another thing too. When I show up to a property and I see there's a tree in front of the property, big trees sometimes they have big roots, right? Very important. I always try to look for the comment on dit, the bombe d'incendie.
Yeah.
How do you say that? The fire hydrant. Yeah. I always look for that because when you have a fire hydrant on the street, you got to imagine the pipe follows, right? It's a
Yeah.
straight line. And if you have a tree that connects, that is close to your main bonhomme d'eau on the exterior,
Mhm.
if your tree is close to that, you might eventually, its roots might attack the pipe, and then it's a whole bunch of different problems. So just avoir le reflet that if you see a tree, try to see where your bonhomme d'eau is on the property. And if it's too close, then you'll know that you'll have to, preferably I recommend to have it checked just to be sure that no surprises.
Yeah.
So yeah, so those are like a few things to look at. If you
Mhm.
retain that, then already you're
That's
starting to become an inspector.
yeah, and sorry, because I said the fire hydrant, but that's like the one for the firemen. You mean like the water valve for the
Yeah.
entrance? I wish I would have known that 2 years ago, because I had a major problem about that with drainage from a fiveplex. And it was like old clogged pipes, and anyways, it all just blew up on us. And anyway, so yes, extremely good advice. In fact, you're absolutely
Because it
right.
depends also on the year of the building. You know, if you have older buildings, you might have cast iron pipes. Cast iron pipes, they're bound to, they're going to break, you know, at some point they rust from the inside. So it gets clogged up, and then you're the lucky owner who bought it, and it's, you just, ça tombe sur toi.
You gotta fix it.
What it is. Yeah.
In our case, we had terracotta pipes, so it's like 3-foot sections that are like embouffés. And we did a camera inspection, and it was literally like the good way to see, well, the best way to imagine it is, imagine having a coffee filter every 3 feet until the pipe. So for about 6 meters or something like that. And just no wonder it got clogged. Like the roots were in there. It was just, oh, anyways, that's another story. Thank you very much for your advice. It's always fun to listen and learn and share, professional experiences. So for everyone who's listening, I hope that you learn at least one thing today that Tanya said. Now, if they want to reach out to you for an inspection, what's the best way to get in touch?
The best way to get in touch, I use my social media a lot. And actually what I do on my social media is I put quizzes up, and I show my followers what it is that I come across, right? Because I come across a lot of weird stuff, and I educate them, because my whole purpose of me being part of the real estate transaction is to educate my buyers, right?
Yeah.
Point final, I'm here to teach you things that you didn't know that I studied to help you make a decision. So if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's TA_inspections. And through there, I actually linked the phone number to the secretary, and my secretary will book any inspections. But I always answer DMs if people need an inspection. I'm always on that's my personal phone. I don't want to put my personal number, but
no, of course,
secretary, and she'll book for me.
Perfect. So Instagram, TA_inspections. I think I already added you, and we'll make sure to share it with as many people as possible. So Tanya, it's been a pleasure having you today. Thank you very much for joining us, and look forward to maybe having you again another time in the future, or if there's something that happens. It's always fun to see you again.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this opportunity. I've never done a podcast about inspections, so I'm glad. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
There you go. It's a first. Thank you for sharing. And to everyone listening, thank you again for hanging out with us today, this afternoon. Keep making some offers, keep researching your market, and keep investing. It's a long-term game. So there you go, and I'll talk to you next week. Ciao, ciao.